Yusuf, hello. Is there a live link that people can watch? Yes.
Yes.
Where? It's not very important. First Pakistan Global. First Pakistan Global. The YouTube channel. First Pakistan Global. And then also Dr. Moeed's YouTube channel as well.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all of you here in the National Press Club of Washington and to all those people who are watching us in Pakistan and across the world. I'm Moeed Pirzada. I'm a Pakistani journalist in exile in Washington at the moment. This event has been organized by the co-host Dr. Asif Mehmood from Democratic Party, Colombia, and his co-host is Ryan Grin, Bureau Chief of Intercept Publications in Washington, D.C. I've been asked to moderate this session. So, and this session and discussion is going to be about the Pakistani democracy and the elections and the irregularities, how an election in Pakistan has been stolen. And also about the forthcoming congressional hearing in which the Assistant Secretary of State, Donald Lu, has been called by the Foreign Affairs Committee of the U.S. House. So with this, I will invite Dr. Asif Mehmood to share his thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. First of all, I really want to take a moment to thank Ryan for being so generous to be co-hosting this important topic where he has a real grasp on the issue and problems as a neutral outside person who is not a Pakistani, who wasn't born in Pakistan, but he studied all the sides and he has a grasp on that and he will come and work on that. But Ryan, I really appreciate you being so generous. Thank you. Moeed, I know how busy you are and we didn't give you much notice, but this event was not planned in a long notice. And for you to accommodate this, thank you. Thank you. Like always, you've been a friend, you've been really a brother. And honestly, in real words, you're a leader. And thank you, and we will hear a lot from you. I want to thank each and every one of you who I know or who I've met for the first time and who have taken the time to be here. But I definitely particularly want to thank two people who have traveled long distance. Asif, who has grown over the last couple of years like a family, and his tireless work and efforts for the people of Pakistan is really highly appreciated. And Barki Saab, you've been out there in Texas, and now you are actually not only over the United States, but actually very popular in Pakistan. But honestly, in these things, popularity matters. Maybe it's bad or good, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. And thank you for your tireless work and everybody else over here. But I really want to take a moment to thank my really good friend and a pioneer who has always been there in a lot of causes I work toward, who is solely responsible for us to get this place for this event in a short notice. National Press Club is I think one of the most prestigious places in at least Washington D.C. and people struggle for weeks to months to get the spot over here. And she got us not only the spot with all the best drums and our drums. Cassandra is really
it seems to be the most fitting place for something like this, besides, of course, over on Capitol Hill. Human rights and advocating for that is absolutely what I work on here at the club to try to bring. I founded Progress Humanity in 2016, and we're a 501c3. We're International Peace and Security Communications is the category we work in, and we build local economic development programs with data scientists, and I do this silly thing where I add celebrities into this mix and amplify the messages by making sure we have different artists and musicians collaborating to kind of help get messages out there. So, which is how we know each other. Anyway, so yeah, Progress.
they are their statements, they are their opinions. Don't tag them to myself or Ryan or Moeed, because we have enough opportunity to express ourselves. So I just want to make a clarification. Before I start my comments on what is happening in Pakistan, especially democracy and state of human rights, I just want to make two more small footnotes here, because things have kind of changed a little bit, and I want to stand here and show a strong solidarity and support for Pakistan right now. What is happening in northern province? There has been skirmishes, and there is no doubt that everybody sitting over here would know that Taliban, whether they are towards Pakistan, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or Taliban other side, they have been brutal. They have been attacking our law enforcement, police, and military has been giving their life for this, and so many civilians and women and children and people have lost their life. And Pakistan had the right to go back there and stop what is going on over there. And I personally don't believe that people like Taliban are the right people who our next fight will be there with them about human rights, religious freedom, democracy, and everybody inclusive. And the second note I wanted to bring is, which is Citizens Amendment Act. India just enforced. It is going to be enforced. They introduced it there. That is one of the, I think, biggest events happening in last few decades. India holds about officially 1/3 of the Muslim majority in that country. I think Pakistan and Indonesia have more, but an official source in India has more Muslims than any other country in the world. And this Citizen Act is literally an attack on religious freedom and attack on Muslims, especially over there. And in next few weeks and months, you will see me extremely active on that because we have to fight that. We have to resent that. They cannot go on Muslims and attack on like this thing, especially calling them the biggest democracy in the world. Thank you for listening to those two footnotes, but now coming back to Pakistan. There is no doubt, it's not just me, it's not just people who are sitting over here. Local media and global media, watchdogs and people who are following democracy have reported extensively about what has happened in Pakistan, especially pre-election season, what has happened in Pakistan after May 9th and what the consequences will be, and what has happened in Pakistan after expulsion of Imran Khan's government and making a very partisan and very aggressive coalition to just suppress one party and one leader. Unfortunately, that party and that leader happens to be the most popular party and most popular leader in Pakistan. That is not my words, that is international media, that is independent pundits have shown it. And I stand here not a member of PTI, I've never been a member of PTI, I'm not a member of any political party in Pakistan, but when today I will talk about human rights, when I will talk about democracy, when I will talk about women's rights, when I will talk about the sanctity of the house and the people's privacy, only one group and one segment of people come who are being attacked, and that is unfortunately voters and activists and supporters of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. I talk about that very openly, very aggressively, and not in any hiding. And obviously, all my talk goes with the solidarity of those people. That's why I'm always blamed, but I really don't care about what I'm blamed for. We will continue to raise our voice on that. I don't want to go into too many details about what happened pre-election rigging, how people were arrested, how politicians were restrained from coming to their districts, how people were stopped from filing the papers, how their second and third people who recommend them to be were stopped, how that party was stopped from making any political gathering, how candidates were kept away, and I got tons of calls. And I have a privilege of talking to at least about 30 families. Immediate people are their immediate families, either father, mother, or daughter, son, or brother, sister, or wife, who were either kidnapped, who were made disappear, who were in hiding because of this brutality coming on them. So all that stuff is documented. That's what happened. Then what happened on election day, how things were created to stop people to go to vote. Fortunately, a lot of young people were the supporter of this party. That's why the whole crowd came up and voted. You all saw in international media reporting what happened and how things were changed over the next 24 to 48 hours. The result from Form 45 and Form 47, which is a new era now. And it did not stop there. Now there is an organized effort to take away the seats of PTI, which they already won. It should have been another way that PTI has been requesting and demanding that many other districts' results should be opened and audited, but they kept on few seats. I don't know, there are 2 or 3 they already taken, and they plan to take more. Even today, 2 days ago, I spoke to father of Rizwan Siam, who was arrested from the court who has 3 minor children, and we don't know what is allegation against him. And that is the whole crisis, that most of the people who are arrested or who were arrested or who they are after, we don't know what the allegations are. If there's a clear allegation, somebody has done some crime, we will definitely second with them, okay, do the due process and give them whatever they deserve. but keeping women in jail for 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, some of them are missing, some of them have young children they cannot see because they cannot come home. That is really a crisis. Our purpose of you getting over here, I'm not going to go much more detail of that stuff because there'll be many people will be talking about some personal experience. Some have reported it, and some are in touch with families over there. But where we go? Why we have to do this? That we are standing here in Washington D.C. and talking about election in Lahore and Islamabad and Pindi. It is because what is happening in Pakistan, they are not allowing people to raise voice right way. The courts are not impartial. The Election Commission is not impartial. And today, I'm going to take the liberty to ask the Election Commission to resign and bring in a fair and clean Election Commission. Although this is their own problem, but we have seen and they've proven time and again they are inefficient, and they are inefficient even making rigging. Who people supporting Pakistan should get. People of Pakistan know that. This hearing will go to a full congressional hearing within next 6 months if we don't find the result. I also want to announce in this podium that there is a congressional, from the congressional, there's a senatorial foreign relations committee hearing in progress. There will be more actions and more actions until we find in a situation where Pakistan is a free There is a freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to organize, freedom to protest, and freedom to have an equal life for everybody. And we are definitely going to focus on women's rights. The biggest drawback and the biggest pain during this process was the brutality on women. There are still some women behind bars who have not been charged yet. Dr. Yasmin Rashid is one of them. We will focus on that, but I just wanted to give you the roadmap, what is going to come up from here up to the next step and next step after that, until we exhaust everything and we change the system. I'm very hopeful, and I'm actually I'm sure that changes will happen. Sometimes it takes longer time, but we will continue our effort with your support, with support of everybody else, whether they are Pakistani or not. Everybody else who wants to have the respect for human rights, who wants to have respect for democracy, and who wants to pursue for religious freedom, who will continue doing this thing. And I again thank you all. I again thank Ryan and Moeed and all of you to be here. And we are here. If there's any suggestion, if there's any other advice you have, we are open to advices. But in my last sentence, I would say is our fight is not against Pakistan. We want to make it very clear. This is not an anti-state thing. This is not an anti-Pakistan thing. This is to strengthen. This is to broaden the horizon for Pakistan. This is for the prosperity, progress, and betterment of Pakistanis. So this should be very, very clear. Difference of opinion does not mean that if I come and say something, then I become anti-Pakistan. And that is a common thing in Pakistan. We're not scared, but we just want to make this very clear on paper, out on the mic, that this whole movement is to make Pakistan better, make Pakistani nation more progressive and more better future. Thank you so much, and appreciate listening.
Sir, before you go, Mr. John Zabali from Airline News. Before you go, can you introduce yourself? Like, in which capacity you are addressing this press conference? Like, you're PTI or like a common Pakistan? I'm asking question to him, sir. Just relax.
Thank you. I think I said it very clearly that I have never been part of PTI. I am not part of PTI. I have never been part of any political party in Pakistan. I am a true Democrat, as an American, as a human rights activist. And my work on human rights globally has been very obvious. Which hearing is happening tomorrow in the same Capitol building, not the same room. I did a bigger hearing on Kashmir. There's the only hearing ever held on human rights abuses in Kashmir by India. That was the only hearing in 75 years at that time. I have done work on Uyghurs, I've done work in Rohingya. My work on Ethiopia is very open. So as a human rights activist, a lover and supporter of Pakistan and Pakistani people, that is the only question.
Can I ask you one thing? For so many things you have worked on, Rohingya, Kashmir, Balochistan is your own country. Are you blind on that?
What is the last thing you said?
Are you blind on Balochistan? You have never worked on Balochistan? So much human rights violations.
I am not blind, and I appreciate you bringing this question. And when I talk about human rights, I don't discriminate any part of the world. It is just not in capacity of one person to go and put steps everywhere. But when time comes, we will talk about that. When I talk about human rights, I talk about human rights globally, not in one region, one area. And I am listening, and now kind of guessing that that issue is going to come up because that issue is rising now. If there is any organization you know who is actually sincerely working on that, I'll be happy to get in touch with them. And we'll probably give you a chance for the question at the end, because I want not take all the time. I want other people. They're really people who have more knowledge about Pakistan than me, who have more orientation about Pakistan than me. So I want you to listen to them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asif. You just heard him from the Democratic Party. He's also explained that he is a human rights activist and has actually conducted seminars and inquiries and campaigns for human rights across the world. Dr. Asif, thank you so much for giving a broad overview. Before I call the next speaker, Ryan Grimm, who is the Bureau Chief of the Intercept Publications in Washington, the Bureau Chief of Washington, who's here right on my right side, I want to give a broad overview of the situation of the election and why it is important not only to the United States but to everyone in the world. Pakistan is the fifth largest nation state in the world, with its population of 240 million plus. It is not only the fifth largest nation state in the world, it is the second largest Muslim country after Indonesia. And more than 60 million people have voted in this election. The election in the country has been stolen, as has been reported effectively. Its details have been shared, and I'm thankful to the publications, the global publications like New York Times, to Financial Times, to The Economist, to the BBC, to the Al Jazeera, and to many other publications that have reported from there and have actually shared the details. So the Pakistani nation has often been considered sort of an anti-American, but this is a very important historic moment where the Pakistani people and the nation are looking up towards the American media, they're looking up toward the American US Congress, they're looking toward the US government to stand by them and to stand by the process of democracy. If the US, some of the congressional aides that are familiar with the testimony that has been submitted by Assistant Secretary of State Honorable Donald Lu have shared those details with me, and they and I find it quite a strange testimony in the sense that it looks like a Cinderella story in which the Assistant Secretary of State Donald Lu has tried creating the impression as if there is a process of democracy in Pakistan, and that has been continuing. That's one of the most bizarre explanations. That's what the facts I want to share. Form 45s are not the Pakistani election result is determined by two documents. One is the Form 45, the other is the Form 47. Form 45s are not the exit polls conducted by MSNBC or CNN, or which are projections. Form 45s are the official results of the election created by the election officials of the Election Commission of Pakistan, signed and stamped by the presiding officer. There were more than 90,000 election polling stations across Pakistan. And these Form 45s were issued because every polling station has 1,000, 1,200 votes registered in it, maybe 1,500. So these Form 45s were issued within 2 hours officially, and almost all political parties had the Form 45s, the official Form 45s that were issued by the presiding officers. As per the law and commitment of the Election Commission of Pakistan, I'm giving you a broad overview as to what is the background and context of the stolen election. So these Form 45s were to be given in writing and stamped before 11 p.m. on the night of the February 8th. And these were given, and the election agents of all the political parties obtained and got the physical possession of the forms. Not only PPP, not only PTI or PPP or PMLN, but every election agent, the polling agent of the independent political parties and smaller political parties had these Form 45s. So Form 45s are the result of the election. And as per these Form 45s, PTI has won more than 170 seats, which has been reduced to around 90 seats. Form 47 are merely the aggregate and accumulation and the mathematical addition of the Form 45s. These Form 47s, as per the ECP law and the Constitution, and as per the Election Act 2017, and as per the written commitments of the Election Commission of Pakistan, were to be provided in consultation. They had to be calculated in the presence of the polling agents or the candidates of all political parties, and they were to be given by 2 a.m. on the night of the February 8th, like between the night of February 8th and the morning of February 9th. These Form 45s and Form 47 were never given, and they were to be officially uploaded within 14 days on the Election Commission site, while they were uploaded after all manipulations somewhere in the first week of March. Fortunately, we have Dr. Sundar Sari here, who's one of the election observers who had traveled to Pakistan from there, and she's also going to share her views. So this is the background and the context in which this particular press briefing is taking place, and pure statistics. So elections have been rigged in many countries in the world. In Pakistan, always they've been rigged. But what was happened in Pakistan with the February 8th election is not the usual traditional election rigging that takes place all across developing countries. This is an election that is stolen. So when people say election has been rigged, they're actually confused. This is an election that has been stolen. Something like that has never happened before in the troubled history of Pakistan. That is why all these people are here. I'll keep on sharing these kind of facts, because not only the people here, but people all over the world in Pakistan are watching. With this, I will request Brian Grimm to join me here and share his thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Moeed, and thanks everybody for coming out here. I'll just speak very briefly. I wanted to kind of preview tomorrow's hearing. As both of you have said, tomorrow's hearing is historic. It's a hearing just focused on Pakistan and Pakistani democracy. And as I understand it, at this point, Donald Lu, Assistant Secretary, will be the only person testifying, which means that he will be the focus of the hearing. The election that you talked about is certainly going to be a significant topic, but so too, I expect, will be the removal of Imran Khan in 2022, which Don Lu played a non-trivial role in, as we all know. Now, the State Department has been asked multiple times, perhaps dozens of times, about what role it played in the removal through a no confidence vote of Imran Khan. And each time they have said a version of the same thing, that the State Department has no preference and has never expressed any preference over who should be the government of Pakistan. That is a decision for the Pakistani people to make. And then there's very rarely kind of a pushback or a challenge to that claim that the State Department makes. I would expect that Donald Lu is going to attempt to speak kind of within the boundaries of what the State Department has said previously. The problem for Assistant Secretary Lu is that his own words said in private have now become public, and anybody on the committee has access to the cipher, the cable that was sent back to Islamabad, detailing precisely what he did say. If there are any reporters or members of Congress who are watching this, I wanted to read just a little bit of that, because it's going to come up tomorrow, I'm sure, in the hearing, and you're going to hear from Don Lu that no preference was expressed, but we have the opposite. So I want to just read a little portion of this. All right, so this is from Asad Majid Khan. I had a luncheon meeting today with Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asia, Donald Lu, who was accompanied by Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Les Biggery. At the outset, Don referred to Pakistan's position on the Ukraine crisis and said that, quote, people here and in Europe are quite concerned about why Pakistan is taking such an aggressively neutral position on Ukraine. If such a position is even possible, it does not seem such a neutral stand to us, unquote. Lu shared that in his discussions with the National Security Council, quote, it seems quite clear that this is the Prime Minister's policy. He continued that he was of the view that this was, quote, tied to the current political dramas in Islamabad that he, the Prime Minister, needs and is trying to show a public face, unquote. I replied that this was not a correct reading of the situation, as Pakistan's position on Ukraine was a result of intense interagency consultations. Pakistan had never resorted to conducting diplomacy in the public sphere. The Prime Minister's remarks during a political rally were in reaction to the public letter by European ambassadors in Islamabad, which was against diplomatic etiquette and protocol. Any political leader, whether in Pakistan or in the United States, would be constrained to give a public reply in such a situation. I asked Don if the reason for a strong U.S. reaction was Pakistan's abstention in the voting in the UN General Assembly. He categorically replied in the negative and said that it was due to the Prime Minister's visit to Moscow. He said that, quote, I think if the no confidence vote against the Prime Minister succeeds, all will be forgiven in Washington, because the Russia visit is being looked at as a decision by the Prime Minister. Otherwise, I think it will be tough going ahead, unquote. He paused and then said, quote, I cannot tell how this will be seen by Europe, but I suspect the reaction will be similar. He then said that, quote, honestly, I think isolation of the Prime Minister will become very strong from Europe and the United States, unquote. Don further commented that it seemed that the Prime Minister's visit to Moscow was planned during the Beijing Olympics, and there was an attempt by the Prime Minister to meet Putin, which was not successful, and then this idea was hatched that he would go to Moscow. I told Don that this was a completely misinformed, wrong perception, and it goes on from there. So I think this is just the incredibly relevant context that I think everybody needs to have, that I hope members of the committee have, before they hear from Assistant Secretary Liu tomorrow. As you all know, the subsequent governments of Pakistan have confirmed that this cable, that this cipher is authentic, and have filed a formal complaint with the United States for the behavior of Assistant Secretary Liu in the meeting. So it will be, I think, very difficult for Liu under oath. Even if you don't swear yourself in, the law requires you to speak honestly to Congress. If you lie to Congress, even without being sworn in, it is a federal offense. So he will be required to tell the truth. So it will be very interesting to see how he navigates the State Department position that he's required to hold, that the U.S. Expressed no interest in one way or the other about who would run Pakistan, and his own comments here. My role here is as a reporter. I'll leave the analysis to everybody else here. I'm happy to take any questions later if there are. Okay, go ahead.
You see, Ryan, I really appreciate what you are doing. That's very good for the whole country. Democracy is very essential for us. And I hate to say Pakistan had always had two problems. One was America, the other was Iran. Now the problem here is Mr. Donald Wu himself is the party to all that. And the US itself had given the blessings to massive rigging in Pakistan. How come Mr. Donald Wu is even invited there? Isn't there a conflict of interest? Is there no ombudsman in the State Department?
Well, it's because the answer would be that Donald Liu is carrying out the policy of the State Department and of the United States. Like if he had gone rogue, if Donald Liu had done something that was contrary to the policy of the State Department, and there were results from that, consequences from that the State Department found going in the wrong direction, he would be fired, or he would be sent somewhere else in the world, demoted, dismissed. But clearly, he remains in his role. He remains a favorite official. So I don't think we can focus on Don Liu himself as kind of originating any of this policy. He's just the bureaucrat whose job it is to carry it out. But that's my reading from the State Department response.
Good to see you here.
Nice to see
Ryan,
you here on the
Ryan,
other side.
Ryan,
Yeah.
so I have a question for you. Why are you addressing this press conference? Don't you think that being an independent journalist, just let me complete my question.
Yeah.
Being an independent journalist, do you think it's very okay to become like a party of this kind
I'm
of?
always
event?
I'm always happy to answer questions. What I have found is that a lot of my colleagues are just simply not informed when it comes to the U.S. policy toward Pakistan. And so whatever I can do, whether it's publishing articles, appearing on television, or appearing on video, I'm fine to do. It doesn't mean I'm endorsing, any particular party or approach. Like you said, I'm here to express my own views, nobody else's. But yeah, I hear the question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ryan. This was Ryan Grimm, the bureau chief of the Intercept Publications in Washington, D.C. I must appreciate your question regarding the Balochistan. I think we have been guilty as a nation, as a people, as a media, that we have totally ignored the human rights situation. the political crisis in Balochistan. And as a nation, we should be ashamed of it. I hope we can redress, we can find ways to address the issues in Balochistan. We can find some sort of political reconciliation over there. And to find the political reconciliation, the first part, it's important for people in Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Sindh, and all across the Pakistani diasporas, to address the real issues in Balochistan, which we have ignored all across. So thankful for your question. Ryan points out that the cipher is authentic because the subsequent governments had actually protested and issued a démarche as suggested by the ambassador Asif at the time. And the démarche was issued, a National Security Committee or Council meetings took place. But I think Ryan failed to mention that the subsequently the PDM government also, has actually charged Imran Khan and Shah Mehmood Qureshi. I mean, they have imprisoned them, they have charged them with a charge that is that also carries potentially a death penalty. The point is this, that they have actually, and they have said that they have leaked an important document, right? So the very fact that they have charged them with an offense that can lead to death penalty means that the document existed. So with this, I would like to invite who wants to come. I haven't been given any list. So let me call Eric Sperling, the Executive Director of the Just Foreign Policy. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's really an honor to be here with all of you and with everyone watching. My name is Eric Sperling. I'm the Executive Director of advocacy organization Just Foreign Policy here in Washington, D.C. Former congressional staffer, working mostly with progressive Democrats and often with members who are concerned, just as my organization is, about the harmful impacts oftentimes of U.S. foreign policy. And sometimes those impacts are it may be known and intended, and other times they might be unknown, unintended. But in our view, certainly the intended ones are more morally problematic, but I think we also have a duty to observe the impact of our actions and make sure that it's not doing harm abroad. I think the focus of every American should be to ensure that your tax money, the government that represents you, is not contributing to those types of issues abroad. As in the first place, and once you address that, then it's also a great place for helping and supporting. But I think what the Pakistani people and what the Pakistani American community are witnessing and experiencing is not new or unique in many ways. People know about the long history of U.S. working to overthrow governments abroad, coups or wars. The U.S. admits a huge part of that. But more recently, as those things become less and less popular, you just start to see sort of a more subtle form of supporting change, regime change. And I think there's some substantial evidence that Pakistanis were the latest victims of this. So while Donald Lu, for example, would insist that the U.S. was not behind toppling Imran Khan, they didn't organize it or lead it, and they didn't direct it or whatever statements they might make. In our view, that's only part of the question that's important. But the better question is whether they knew or whether they thought it was possible that Pakistani authorities would view their statements as being something that would indicate perhaps a signal that the U.S. wouldn't complain if they did it, or the U.S. wouldn't criticize, wouldn't call out for democracy if they did overthrow that leader. And if that is what they thought, the Pakistani authorities, that's roughly what, in our assessment, what took place. Even though there was widespread repression of too many types to name here, from according to credible sources, we did see an incredibly quiet response at best from key U.S. authorities. And so, I've heard so many Pakistanis, both here and back in Pakistan, who are just, they come to us just distraught. I mean, they just can't comprehend how the U.S. government could be silent on this. And they come and they say, these are basic American values. Why aren't they hearing us? Why aren't they understanding? And it's heartbreaking to see that. And I think the U.S. needs to take a look at whether how, not just what if their comments were technically appropriate, whether they were technically acceptable, whether they organized it, but whether their statements gave a signal that led to this, and then whether they helped support that by being quiet about all the violations that entail. And of course, this only increased with the elections, which, at least from my, in my kind of life here, observing elections were some of the most, appeared to be some of the most brazenly and kind of poorly executed rigging that I've ever witnessed. But despite all of that, State Department comments were delayed, were very soft, and they really only came after the Pakistani American community rallied so much of Congress to put pressure on. So I just, I think from our perspective, I don't think the U.S. is sensing just how many Pakistanis here and back at home feel betrayed by this. And I think it's a major strategic risk for the United States, in addition to being a moral problem. But it's also for those folks who think about the world, the strategic risks with Pakistan's young population, the youngest population in its history. I really think they are undervaluing it. It's a very serious gamble that they're taking in hoping that this movement will die down and that the very young population of Pakistan won't care about it. So just on the Donald Liu hearing, I know this is, and some could say it's perhaps the most important U.S. hearing on U.S.-Pakistan relations yet. I don't think it will be the last one, but it could be arguably the most important. Unfortunately, while the House Foreign Affairs Committee is tasked with doing an oversight role, it's not a venue that is often, going to be the most ideal place for interrogating, getting deep into the weeds with this. So I just wanted folks, observers who aren't familiar with that, to be aware of that. Many of the staff and members are very close with the State Department. They collaborate on many different issues, and so just want to kind of manage expectations about the level of excitement that there may be around that. And the State Department strategy, I can't speak to them, but from what we can observe, it appears to be a strategy of avoiding, hoping that this crisis can kind of fade away by avoiding saying things that are too critical of the Pakistani government, that it will make a headline, or that are too supportive of the Pakistani government, that they will create a scandal. So you're going to see, I think, folks who are friendly with Donald Liu, and kind of share their kind of general outlook, following that pattern of, criticism that is neither too warm or too cold, and that I think is a strategy. So folks who aren't aware of that should keep that in mind. Yeah, and so I think, we can't speak to their motivations, why they do that, but, I think there's some evidence that, what they prefer is for, they're comfortable with the leadership that is kind of largely the establishment, as some call it, in Pakistan, that has been a reliable ally. On a range of geopolitical issues, they're comfortable with their strong ties with people like Munir and Anjum, I believe, who were just, of course, in DC just a few months ago for a friendly visit. But from our perspective, from what we've learned, there's, unfortunately for all of them, there's a really impressive and growing Pakistani American community that, while they have put in a lot of effort in the last 2 years, their awareness of how to influence the political system is only growing very exponentially. And so I think, our professional assessment, I would say, to the State Department would be, and to those who are hoping this would die down, is that appears highly unlikely. I think, with Egypt, for example, the leader in Egypt, had a kind of a mysterious death, and that democracy movement was they were able to stifle it. I don't see that happening with Pakistan, and I just think, I hope that I would recommend that U.S. officials would reassess this, because it's if you get this wrong and you have been shown to be appearing to be supportive of this regime that young Pakistanis disproportionately oppose, it could have lasting impacts that that could really impact U.S. presence in the region, U.S. broader goals. So I think we would recommend that. And then for the Pakistani government, while we're completely non-interventionist, we would say that even if while we respect Pakistan's sovereign right on its political matters, the U.S. people do have the sovereign right over our weapons, our military cooperation, other political support. And so I would keep that in mind, that as this Pakistani American and pro-democracy efforts increase here, that support is going to be harder and harder to come by, particularly if there isn't a change in course that shows more respect towards human rights and other basic political rights and democratic principles. So yeah, thank you very much.
Eric, thank you so much. This is Eric Sperling, the Executive Director of the Just Foreign Policy. Before I call Dr. Sundar Sali, I want to basically make my own admission that while this hearing of the congressional hearing that seems to be focused on Donald Lu, the Assistant Secretary of State, who's on the board over there, I personally think looking and living every single day of this political crisis in Pakistan, the real important issue at the moment is not Donald Lu. The real important issue is this, that in the country, which is the 5th largest nation state in the world, the 2nd largest Muslim nation, the only nuclear Muslim power, elections have been stolen. Elections have been stolen. These are not rigged. Elections have been stolen. 60 million Pakistanis, despite all fear, repression, all kind of intimidation, arrests, thousands arrested, thousands prosecuted. There was an element of fear, internet being shut down. I mean, people have really suffered. Yet, the people of Pakistan have demonstrated a strong belief and conviction in the process of democracy. And the process of democracy is important for a country as large, as diverse, which has not only the 4 official provinces, but 6, 7 jurisdictions, if you include Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, have once again reposed their confidence in the democratic process. And yet, their mandate has actually been stolen, as I mentioned. So I think the actual focus of the congressional hearing tomorrow should actually be on the way the election has been stolen. Yeah. I would just conclude and then you can ask the questions. And immediately after the election on 9th February, Matthew Miller, with his own signature on the US State Department, issued a black and white statement asking for the regime and the system in Pakistan to investigate the election results. And it has never been followed up. Nothing has been investigated. As I mentioned you earlier, since I am master of statistics on these issues, the Form 45s were supposed to be officially given by 11 p.m. on the 9th of February. And Form 47, as per the Election Commission's own commitment and policy, were to be given by 2 a.m. in the morning of the February 9th. These were never given. The State Department asked for investigation, never followed it up. Nothing really happened. After a few days, they started behaving as if things were hunky-dory, and they're still behaving as if things are hunky-dory. And the testimony which has been briefed to me by the Assistant Secretary of State, Donald Lu, tries to treat the whole thing as a la-la land, as underdeveloped savage nation where some sort of democracy is progressing and that's a good thing to clap. I mean, this is a joke, the kind of testimony that has been submitted. So I think the violation of the human rights, the fact that the journalists, like I've been a mainstream journalist, I think I've always found myself as a blue-eyed Pakistani. I have to live in exile. Shahid Arshad Sharif, very prominent Pakistani journalist, the way he was hunted and gunned down, the way hundreds of Pakistani journalists have been harassed, dozens of them were picked up, thrashed, beaten, hung upside down, stripped naked, and the way thousands of people have been arrested, the way internet is being shut down. I mean, it's the 5th week. The Twitter, which is these large American platforms like the Twitter, the Facebook, and the YouTube, are now the only connect after totally silencing and intimidating the Pakistani media. These platforms are the connect. And the Twitter is the single most important platform because US President POTUS is on the Twitter, State Department is on Twitter, every government is on Twitter. And the Twitter has been silenced in Pakistan. That's the only connection between the Pakistani diasporas worldwide, whether they exist in the United States or Canada or Latin America or Australia, New Zealand, anywhere. Twitter is their connect with Pakistan. Twitter brings them the information. way this situation is in Pakistan, that even when you criticize these army officers, it becomes that you hate the army. Army is a respected Pakistani institution. The people of Pakistan for the past 70 years have invested billions of dollars of their own money. Thousands of Pakistani men and women and families have sacrificed for keeping up this institution. This is an important institution. However, if there is an elite captured at the top of the institution, as per the political science, I think every Pakistani citizen, and we're not wearing uniforms, we're not committed by the discipline of the armed forces, we have the right to criticize them. And I think your question is a very fair question. I hope this question is asked by the congressman. I'm not familiar how the process will take place, but you have a very relevant question, sir. I would request Dr. Sundar Sali to come here and brief us her observations. She traveled from United States to Pakistan as an election observer. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Moeed Pirzada. Thank you so much, Dr. Asif Mehmood. I must thank you for giving me this platform to speak. I must also thank Asif and Brian Grimm and all of you. It is a true honor to be speaking here today at the National Press Club and to be able to share what I saw with my own eyes in Pakistan. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been very involved and passionate in the politics of South Asia for perhaps the last decade or so. I've been teaching this subject at the University of Oxford, and I moved to the US a couple of years ago. So I've been, I guess, a keen student and a keen learner of what happens in Pakistan, what happens in India. I now also, of course, do my own vlogging. But I went as an election observer in February in Pakistan. This is something I had in my mind when we got the election schedule. I thought I would love to go and see what happens, how is an election in Pakistan conducted, and to be able to see it for myself on the ground. So I went with an organization here in the US, for which, according to their policy, I cannot mention their name. But when I was in Pakistan, so I went at the beginning of February, just about a week before the election, and I was working with the Free and Fair Election Network in Pakistan, the FAFIN, as we call them, FAFIN. Before we went, just to tell you a little bit about the observation, it's a long-term observation method that we followed. So we were not looking at just the election day, but we were looking at I would say 3 stages. So the election, we were taught, and this was a part of our training, is not just the polling day, but it's pre-election, polling day, and post-election. And so we started making notes, I would say, from December, and we when the election schedule was announced. One of the things we noted was when the election schedule was announced, it became quite clear that the mood of the country, it was great that, yes, we finally have an election coming up, but the way that the nomination papers were submitted, the candidates who submitted their nomination papers, not all of them had a free and fair chance to submitting. They were subject to torture, they were subject to, their families were being subject to targeting. And I would say this became clearer later on that there was perhaps one party that was facing this. But interestingly, there were other parties who were also facing this. So this is when I went to Pakistan and I spoke to some of the people on the ground. It wasn't just the party with Imran Khan, PTI. The PPP also complained and said, oh, we also have our posters are being pulled down in Karachi. The MQM is challenging and they're burning down our offices. And so it became, that was very interesting for me, that it wasn't just one party, which I thought before going to Pakistan that actually, we can see that they're not being given a level playing field, but it was more than just that. So this was the pre-polling process. There were challenges, and there were definitely, there was, I would say, thuggish behavior against independents and ransacking of their offices in the lead up to the election. So if you are supporting Imran Khan and you are standing up in the election, that it became quite clear that it wasn't suppression, a voter suppression. And when I went to Pakistan a week before, then we had some more training there that was given to us by FAFIN. And this is the largest network of civil society organizations in Pakistan, FAFIN, and they do an excellent job. I have to give the credit to them that they trained us so well with so much sincerity. We had a full day of training where we had a manual that we went through extensively. And our training covered each aspect of polling day. So from the morning till actually the votes were being counted. So we did the training, and then on election day, let's get to the exciting part. I was based in Lahore, and I looked at 4 polling stations, and in a remote area called Fatehgarh. It was very difficult to get to, but they gave us transport. And I was there from 7:30 a.m. pre-polling. We had to see how the ballot boxes are sealed or not, etc. So I saw all of that. They were sealed. Everything seemed like, well, this is. What I noticed was that there was definitely, in terms of the facilities and the equipment that the election officials had was very basic. Things like, not having enough staplers, etc. So we noticed all of those challenges, and they were sitting on cold benches the whole day and with no breaks. What I saw was that the election officials were so hardworking and worked with so much sincerity throughout the day, and I was trying to look for irregularities. I was trying to look at where is the rigging, but it became very clear from 8 o'clock on election day when the internet and the phone signals were gone. And first, we didn't really understand what was going on because, of course, the day before, we had been told that this would not happen. So everyone was like, well, we can't speak. Even if the election officials were really struggling. So this wasn't just the voters, but they couldn't speak to their families. And they had actually been on this, the day before when they had to collect the election materials. So they had been, a lot of them had not had enough sleep. And we thought, okay, well, eventually this will come back. The phone signals will come back, but they didn't come back the whole day. And so I had 4 polling stations, and how did I find my next one? Even that was a challenge because I didn't have Google Maps and I was in a remote area. So, and I thought these are my challenges, but I will tell you a story of Rabia at the end, who was a very inspirational voter for me. But I will keep her story to the end. So we, carried on with the day. The ballot boxes were sealed. Shortly after 8 o'clock, voters started coming in, started voting. And the day went on, and I interviewed many different people, presiding officers, polling officers. But what I noticed was that there was a delay, and in one of the polling stations I was in, we had 4 different polling stations, but 2 of them were closed, and I didn't know why. Why were they being closed? And later on, as I saw that actually now there were longer queues in the other 2 polling stations. So this was perhaps, I wouldn't say it's a tactic, but this was something that I observed as slowing down the process of voting. So what I saw was long queues outside the 2 polling stations in that building, and this happened. And I heard from the other observers later on that this was something which was not just in my polling station, but in others as well. That they were, so if you just decrease the supply, there's more demand. So there was long queues outside, and not many people were not being able to vote because of this. So this was a way of slowing down the voting process, and delaying the polling. It also IDs. This is another thing I noticed when voters were coming in with their IDs. A lot of them were, certain IDs were not being accepted, and voters were being turned back. One of the incidents that I observed was presiding officers and the election officers, the way they were treating the elderly voters. And I really felt this was a form of voter harassment, because there was, and I've never seen so many elderly people vote like this in Pakistan's elections before. They were coming without any help, and they were coming in and asking the presiding, so how do I vote? And of course, as we know, that this was a very difficult situation with so many symbols, especially for PTI. And the presiding officer was very rude to these elderly voters, and almost inhumane behavior, that you should have brought a helper with you. I cannot help you. And technically presiding officers or any election official cannot help you vote. But that doesn't mean that you treat these people like animals. I really felt like I saw a lack of kindness in the behavior of the election officials. And I thought this is not the training that they should have been provided. If people are trying to vote, please help them vote. An election should give access to people and not put them off. And this was very disturbing for me to see the way that these elderly voters were being treated. And the day went on, and it was, until 11, so I went to 4 different polling stations, and in the last one that I went to, I saw the vote counting as well, which again, I have to say, in front of me, this was the Form 45 that was being produced in NA 1-1, and I saw all the votes for the different parties being counted, and it looked absolutely fine. And I thought, well, where is the rigging? And I remember thinking like, this is, what is everyone talking about? They opened up the boxes, they first closed the doors, we had security inside, all the polling agents. And by the way, there were so many polling agents for PTI. This is one of the other things which maybe this is a myth I want to dispel, this one thing that polling agents perhaps for PTI were not allowed, but at least in the ones where the polling stations I was, most of the polling agents were for the independence PTI. So they were full of passion and lots of drive. And so eventually around 10:30 p.m., the votes, they started counting the votes, the presiding officer, and one by one. And I even made her recount one of the rounds, and I said, I think you've made a mistake. I just wanted to also challenge to see if they actually listened to us. And she did, and she recounted it in front of me. And I remember thinking, I'm satisfied with this. I'm satisfied with the way the vote counting is done now. And she was very, very, very meticulous and followed all the processes. Perhaps a little bit inefficient, but this was at 11 p.m. we got the Form 45. We walked out of the polling station. But there were lots of young men outside who were saying, can you tell us the result? Who won? And I showed them my Form 45 and I said PTI. That was the NA 121, and there was a huge celebration. But this is only until 11 p.m. And I want to go back actually to Rabia's story, which I mentioned, and then I will come on to the post-polling. Around 5 p.m., which is when polling time stopped, I was just coming out of the gate to get something, and there was still a queue of people who I explained because of this delay in the voting process couldn't vote. But there was this one girl who really caught my attention, and she saw that I had an ECP pass, so she said, can you please let me in? And I said, well, it's 5:20 now, the voting is closed. And she said, please, and almost to the point that she was begging, and even the guards in the gate said, can you please take her in somehow? And I said, I have to go and ask the presiding officer. This is not my authority as an election observer to let you in. So I went back and I spoke to the presiding officer, and she said, okay, let her come in. But if I hadn't gone out, that girl actually, she started crying in front of me, and she said, please let me vote. And I've never seen this kind of sentiment. And even the guard said, look, she's crying, please let her in. She was so sentimental, and she said, I don't know why they allocated this polling station to me, because she said, I don't have anyone who lives in this area. Just a day before the election, they changed my polling station. And this happened to a lot of voters where they were designated one polling station, but a few days before they were changed. And then she said, she said, you don't know how I came here. I left my house at 11 a.m. and now I get here at 5:20 p.m. because there were no Google Maps. And she said that they've put me in this remote area. How am I supposed to come here? And she said, I dropped my 2 sisters off in the morning to their polling stations, and now I've just asked people and I've found my way here. And that really touched my heart. And I thought, and it means so much to her. There were other voters who couldn't vote, but they were just like, okay, we can't vote. But she just started crying, and she had tears in her eyes. And I took her inside, and the presiding officer thankfully said yes. And that girl was in the queue, and she was the last one to vote in that polling station. And I asked her, who did you vote for? And she said, Imran Khan for PTI. I mean, I think this kind of voice, that's the biggest success that I, as an observer, saw, that the mandate, the people came out despite all the struggles. And actually, I realized, oh my God, actually, yes, not having the internet means you can't have Google Maps. And all these people who, she made the effort, and she had the courage, and she was a young girl, probably in her late 20s or 30s. But what about the elderly people? What about the disabled people? And so, and she had a car, she had transport, she could somehow do this, but there must be so many people who could not have voted because of not having the internet. But and also when people were voting, as an observer, I was also asking some of the, I was interviewing the people who were voting, and a lot of people said, I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you who I voted for. And I said, why? She said, I'm scared. You know, a lot of people were scared to tell me who they voted for. And I can guess who they must have voted for. And they didn't want to tell because of security reasons. But Rabia's story really sticks out to me. And then after the election, and a few days later, I messaged her and I said, so are you happy? PTI with the independents got the majority. She said, well, my vote got wasted because the mandate is stolen. And she said, what's the point? Why did I make so much effort? Because look what's happening now. And I said, no, I think what you did was absolutely right. You came out and voted. And people coming out and voting is a huge result in itself. And of course, after the election, so I went home, I got home at 11:30. The internet, of course, was still, you know, was not, and there was, and now, and I came home and I was really trying to ponder and think, so where was the rigging? I didn't see it. But, you know, it's not that simple. Of course, if we look at the pre-polling and if we look at the internet and the phone signals being blocked, that's a huge denial of the free and fair information to people. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
You observed one polling station, which was probably
For-
four polling
Mhm.
the final results of the polling stations.
Yes.
Did you follow up what happened to that particular polling station? Final results.
Yes, that in NA 121, we were not allowed to go to the RO's office. Yes, so I as an observer didn't know what happened in that RO's office. Yes.
The finalization of the Form 47, you were not allowed to watch.
No. We watched Form 45 being produced in front of our eyes, and then the presiding officer would then take that huge sack, and you know, and they put, you know, they steal it so well with a candle and everything, and you think, well, where is it? But they're so skilled, of course. And she took all of that, and then she went around, I would say, at 1 a.m. to the RO's office. And then we started hearing stories of what was happening, and then I saw this, and a lot of election observers tried to go to the RO's offices, but were not allowed. FAFN's observers were not allowed in our RO's offices. This is, you know, in Islamabad, but I was in Lahore. Yes. So I think this is, you know, and post-polling, I think the investigation that has been happening in terms of electoral fraud and investigating, you know, the stolen vote. So our post-polling observations are that there hasn't been a sufficient response by the ECP, by the Election Commission of Pakistan, and how long will it take for these cases to be actually resolved is another question, because as we saw in previous elections, it can take years. So I think, you know, I think the sentiment that I really felt on the ground was that people were very passionate. For the first time in my life, I've seen this, that people have been so passionate to vote, but the human rights abuses, the voter suppression, they have fueled negative sentiments and a sense of, well, you know, a demoralization. So I think people are demanding a return of the mandate of their rightful representatives. And I just want to leave that story of Rabia with all of you. This is, you know, somebody who, despite all the obstacles, still came out to vote. And I think in all of the election observation, what I noticed is that, yes, people on the ground are working very hard, but perhaps there are bigger forces or factors or powers that have not led to a free and fair election. And also lastly, this is perhaps it's not the official statement of BaFin, my observation, these are my own personal experiences. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take questions. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So this is Dr. Sundaswali. Thank you so much. I mean, how she has described the whole process of the election rigging, the fear, the intimidation. And I think this is precisely why the stealing of the election is the most important thing rather than the cipher at the moment. Before I call Sajjad Barki Sahab, there are two gentlemen here who I think will like to explain the process of transnational repression that is going on. I can begin, Salman. Time is running short, so because then we have Muhammad Akbar. Right? Yeah, so I would request you to come in actually quickly, and then.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take you back to May 8th, 2023. Congresswoman Maxine Waters from California, she had got in touch with me. And a lot of the Pakistani American community were saying to her that there's huge gross violations of human rights in Pakistan. And since the toppling of Imran Khan's government on the 9th of April 2022, that we as Pakistani Americans are finding it more and more difficult to safeguard our families and our relatives in Pakistan. So Maxine Waters said, can I set up a Zoom call with former Prime Minister Imran Khan? I did that on the 9th of May 8th. It was a 15-minute phone call in which former Prime Minister Imran Khan forecasted really all that we've seen and you guys are talking about, that is the law of the jungle in Pakistan. He had already survived 2 assassination attempts, one in a helicopter, then the shooting on November 3rd. And he said, Maxine, what I would like for you as a US lawmaker is to verify independently what I'm saying to you, that there is no rule of law, no constitutional supremacy, no democracy. This was the night of May 8th. Next morning, former Prime Minister Imran Khan drove from Lahore to the Islamabad High Court. And at the High Court, as you saw and everybody else saw on CNN and all the media, world media, military commandos came and abducted Imran Khan on the morning of May 9th. And this is what the Supreme Court Chief Justice said was illegal, unconstitutional. He was thrown into a solitary confinement for 4 days. He had no access to phone. And the May 9th, and everything that happened on May 9th, 2023, happened as a result of mass confusion. What happened after that, right when Imran Khan was released 4 days later, that there was a massive hunt of people who were close to Imran Khan, supporters, workers, leaders, Pakistani Americans like myself. In May, Karachi, my sister's home, 15 men wearing masks with guns jumped over the wall, broke into the house at 2 a.m., destroyed the furniture, destroyed the glass, woke up my brother-in-law, my sister, their family members, rounded them up and asked them where I was. I was in New York at that time. And they wanted my Twitter password. They wanted me to delete tweets which were critical of martial law, military chief, and ISI chief, and other generals. And they abducted my brother-in-law, subjected him to torture. And that's how we got drawn in. My testimony tomorrow, the hearing is on this. I went and spoke with the FBI, to Homeland Security, the State Department, our friends in the Biden administration, and in both Senate and Congress. And the word first time I ever heard was called transnational repression. And basically the FBI and Homeland Security told me was that this is quote unquote very, very serious for the United States, because you've probably noticed that an Indian American Sikh gentleman who was in New York, there was an assassination attempt on him, which was foiled by the FBI. There was another Canadian gentleman who was assassinated, and this is what Prime Minister Trudeau called Prime Minister Moody to say, that your intelligence agencies are assassinating our citizens on our soil. Same thing is happening on US soil. So for Congress or anybody in the State Department, your biggest responsibility is protecting the lives of American citizens. US citizens of Pakistan are under direct threat. Every day I get death threats. I had to move my family out of Pakistan. Some of them are on the ECL. So my testimony tomorrow is basically focused on transnational repression, but there's 4 other things I just want to quickly touch on. I was driving from New York, coming down to DC. I stopped at a gas station, and the gas attendant said to me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, originally," I said, "from Pakistan." He said, "I'm from Jamaica." I said, oh, great. He said, it's terrible what they're doing to Imran Khan, putting him into solitary confinement. And this is a guy as a gas attendant from Jamaica. And in Pakistan, you can't take Imran Khan's name on television. You can't show his face. And they think that by just putting him into solitary confinement, that the world will forget about him. So my question to Congress, and I raise this question for the media, is, are we in a Mossadegh moment? You know what happened in 1953? The Prime Minister of Iran, a moderate Muslim, was toppled. It's declassified. The CIA, MI6 worked with, similar to what happened to Imran Khan, toppled Mossadegh, foisted upon an authoritarian Shah regime, which 25 years later led to an extreme right bloody revolution. And I'm telling you, as Pakistani Americans and 240 million Pakistanis, Imran Khan is the most popular Pakistani, arguably the most popular Muslim leader in the world. He's in solitary confinement. The more that he's put there, and the bogus cases which are thrust upon him, each one by one, you can see that these cases have no weight. There's anger growing in Pakistan. So why would the United States want Iran, which is rapidly anti-American, for Pakistan to become anti-American? What kind of policy is that? Makes no sense to me. Last two things, I think. So all of us who grew up as Pakistanis, prior to April 9th, 2022, we were suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And what was the Stockholm Syndrome? We could never think of critiquing the Pakistani military. Like, it was like awful. They were holy cows. And you just cannot do that. We had, family in the armed forces, Air Force, Navy, military. But after April 9th, 2022, all the masks have fallen. And people have recovered from I think mostly Pakistanis have recovered from this Stockholm Syndrome. And finally, the elections is a referendum. It's a Pakistani decolonization process. Because young people, women, they don't want to be held, in slavery by the military. They have broken those shackles, and this is never going to die down. It's always going to continue. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so just a quick word about the transnational repression that Salman had referred to. The transnational repression is a very important law that is developing in North America and will soon be developed across the European world, Australia, and New Zealand. The transnational repression is of two components. One is of course, any kind of terror attack or harassment that can take place on the US soil. But the transnational repression principally deals with the fact that when the immigrants that have come to the United States, or if they're involved in political activity and opinions, if their families and businesses and their partners and friends are harassed in the country of origin, this is what the transnational repression deals with. It's a developing law, and I think the authorities in Pakistan are very unwise. They're not realizing it's the responsibility of the Foreign Office to basically inform them, educate them. It's a serious law and is developing. The bill is now in front of the Congress. It's a bipartisan bill. But the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, has already established a hotline. And similarly, the Canadian intelligence has put up a hotline in Canada as well. So Pakistani authorities, Pakistani Foreign Office are ignoring the implications of the transnational repression of the home panel. Hundreds of Pakistanis have been harassed, fall under the ambit of transnational repression. Pakistanis have, out of respect for Pakistan, not documented that formally with the FBI. And FBI themselves have been calling Pakistanis. Two FBI agents approached me in June, and they asked me, I haven't really filed in writing. You filed in writing, yeah, but there are hundreds of instances, and it will become a problem for Pakistan going down the way. I think the Foreign Office should actually note that. You quickly want to have a few words before I go on.
One thing I actually really missed, two people I really want to recognize who've been instrumental in doing all these things is Dr. Usman and Junaid. Thank you so much. I should not have forgotten that, but with all this happening, thank you so much for your all the work and every assistance on the stuff. One thing I wanted to bring, which is happening now, just got a message that KPK Chief Minister, the only Chief Minister of PTI, has been issued warrants, arrest warrants concerning with May 9th. I have had repeated discussions with him myself. He was in his hometown, actually his home, and he raised my home that day. He had no active role of that. He's a bold, blunt, passionate guy, and I think this is another effort to destabilize that province because they cannot sway him to give in the support of his party and his leader. That raised very much strong concern. We'll see in next 18 hours what we can do to bring this topic of discussion in tomorrow's hearing. But if he doesn't come on there tomorrow, I think this will be brought very seriously. And if he's arrested and government in KPK is toppled, that will be another point of discussion. We might have to do some other forum and do something on that. And the other part, we had a very constructive discussion. What you're talking about, 6, yes. I had a meeting. Actually, I had a very prominent Sikh leaders with me, with ranking member in Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Grady Meeks, and that issue is very serious, and the U.S. government is taking very serious, especially Foreign Affairs Committee is taking very serious. And if the evidence comes out about on Pakistan, that will be also taken up later date.
Thank you, Dr. Asif. I should have also told that First Pakistan Global, an NGO, which is financing itself, has nothing to do with the political party Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and I'm thankful to First Pakistan Global for facilitating this event as well. Now, transnational repression. Here we have a classic textbook example of transnational repression. Muhammad Akbar, who previously served in Pakistan. Sayyid Akbar Hussain, who previously served in the Pakistan Army as an officer, as a US citizen for the past perhaps 20+ years, has been issued a death penalty kind of notices. I haven't really seen the notice, but he's there, he can explain that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I'm literally overwhelmed with this opportunity because I came to the United States over 20 years back with a certain, chasing a dream. I'm living the dream. And when I look back what has happened in Pakistan in the past 2 years, it has hurt us so much as Pakistani diaspora. It has hurt us so much as US citizens of Pakistani origin. Look what we enjoy over here. We enjoy over here the life, the liberty, and right? Does anybody come and hits you, comes at night, or on the road, or anything? Does anybody destroys your, property for that? Your hard-earned, whatever it is, right? It doesn't happen here. So with that mind, I will touch upon. I'll not take very long for if you're sitting here. Thank you so much, Eric. Your points are very forward-looking. They were telling, and that is what this whole hearing is about tomorrow. It is about the Pakistan after elections. Right now, the Congress is worried more about Pakistan after elections. What has happened? So much water has gone, under the bridges. That's okay. Now, 2 things. What is the future of democracy in Pakistan? And then how would it affect? How would it affect the Pakistani-US relationship? Now, Pakistani-US relationship is not about 2 dead entities. It is about the relationship of Pakistanis and Americans. The people, right? And there are massive people. There are 250 million people over there, over 300 million people in the United States. And look at the polar opposites of these 2 environments. Now, again, where we started, Dr. Moeed said, and from Ryan Graham we heard. So this is all the background of it. The very real-time, elections and what you have highlighted, Dr. Sundas Ali over here, that brings a holistic view of how this environment has developed, like where we are today. Okay? In that, because of my background and what is happening to me, and then in general Pakistanis and Americans and future looking, I would touch upon a thing which is not being highlighted and said in so many words. It is the militarization of a domain which has to be democratic. This militarization, which we get into the fascism, it eats on freedom, liberty, life. It has happened time and time again all over the world, right? History is repeat of all this. We have come here, we are in a very educated, very informed, kind of a system over here. We're talking about two things. We're talking about this hearing taking place by our representatives. Being an American or US citizen, they're my representatives. They are examining, calling the administration guy, Mr. Liu, what the hell have you done, or what are you doing, and what are you going to do? So, based on that, I have few observations to make, and then I will go to this transnational repression. The thing is this, that now it is beyond doubt. If we close our eyes and not look what has happened, I'll make a quote of Dr. Moeed. He said in his vlog a few days back that American administration, these representatives, our leaders, they have gotten into that mental freeze where they say, oh, who are we going to talk to in Pakistan? We can only talk to an organized, capable, or organization which can do things over there. There is nobody. That's a bullshit. That's a bullshit. People have spoken. You have to, we have to, as Americans and our representatives and this administration has to act. It is important not only for US, it is not only important for the Pakistanis, it is important for the region. It is important for the whole world. You're dealing with a nuclear country. It is being controlled. The most powerful political party is the military in Pakistan. But the biggest party in Pakistan is the people. Now you cannot close. Like Eric said, it was forward looking. It will not die down. What started with Ayub and American interaction, a consul general in Lahore, writing in 1952, I've been told that Ayub Khan says, I'll take care of the population and I'm going to take care of what? The politicians. No more, man. So we impress upon our representatives, once they are examining the future of democracy in Pakistan, it is nowhere there today as it is after the elections. If America believes in the values on which it stands, they have to do something. That's number one thing. Democracy is under siege and it is being eaten away by fascists and military. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. He was the only person who has taken one name, Asif Munir. He is the face of this fascism and this militarization, and I am very vocal. You see, I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran, right? I came out, as I said, I'm chasing a dream. Now I have, made a transition into a little bit of your domain, being a citizen journalist. Okay, because I need to do something, and that is the only way to do it. Yes. So doing that, it is that I'm speaking of my right, right? So what has happened is in Pakistan, they also implicated me in the 9th May and lodged an FIR, which I responded to legally in Pakistan. So it is in a kind of a suspended animation. Lately, only about 10 days back, I received a little note, a bogus note, which is a court notice. And it is summons to the court. Which court? It is being held in Chunia Cantonment. So is it a military court? Well, if it is a military court, then they better write that who's the president of the court. They just write president of the court and they don't sign it. The charges that they have put on me are, if they prove it to be right, so the end result is a death penalty. So this harassment, I've never taken, I'll not lie down on this. And it has come, it's so, many lines have been crossed here. This notice comes through Pakistan Embassy. We have 2 representatives from the embassy sitting over here. And please go and tell Mr. Brigadier Irfan and also this guy, Usman, who's the community affairs counselor, basically an intelligence guy, an ISI guy, that look, you cannot do this in Washington, D.C. You cannot do it. I am a US citizen on US soil. I have a right to speak. I have the right to highlight anything. So if you send and you do it so mockingly and you do it so stupidly, if Defense Department has done it, why they have not, Brigadier Irfan, why you have not signed it? You have put a diary number. There is something known as diary number 173 dated March 4th. So if a diplomatic mission, an embassy is being used on the soil of United States, that is actually trampling diplomatic norms. If somebody has a problem, then the state should talk to the state. And I have also reported to the FBI, same thing, because it's a direct threat. And this threat, I am making it public right now. Tomorrow, my representatives, when they examine that what is happening and what is this relationship, this should also come, I should say, very, very strongly. United States has to act. Why? Because we consider ourselves to be the leaders of the free world. And if you want to lose that position, okay, then don't act, and play your games with Mr. Lu, what he's doing. His testimony is appalling. He's talking about irregularities. He has not mentioned that we have eyes. Now we have the eyes from the space, we can even pick up somebody talking from the space, then what is he talking? So we have a very clear understanding what is going on in Pakistan. People have been killed, people have been tortured, people have been abducted. 2 of our functionaries over there, Mr. Donald Bloom, right? He is on behalf of my government in Pakistan. The optics, what is going on over there, is appalling. The other guy, the station chief over there, what kind of feedback is he sending here? Can they please tell us? So I'm actually, I can go on this and speak a thesis on this, and Dr. Moeed is talking about the time. So I thank you very much. I wanted to come out and be not afraid of saying this. Speaking up is a right, and we'll do that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, all that you've heard about transnational repression isn't just making a speech here or writing a testimony to Congress. We are taking legal action. We've already consulted lawyers, and all of us, all the Pakistani Americans. It's not just a couple of people. It's all of them. So we will take legal action.
Yeah, so we have to wind up. We have one speaker left, Mr. Sajjad Barki. I would ask him, and afterwards, if any journalist want to ask any questions, you're most welcome. But let's find out. Good, Sajjad Barki, sir.
Assalamu alaikum and thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Dr. Moeed Pirzada, Dr. Asif, Mehmood, and everybody who's put this thing together today. I have been talking about doing a press conference for many weeks, and I'm so glad we were able to do this. Introduce myself, Sajjad Barki. I am a representative of PTI. I am the focal person appointed by Chairman Imran Khan in the US, so I can speak up for my party and my leader. I'll just touch on a couple of things very briefly that affect us. You've all heard. I don't want to repeat anything that's been said before. It's very alarming the way things are moving right now. Just recently, I'm not going to go too far in the past. Just recently, in the last few days, I and my very close associate and friend, who also works with me in PTI, Atif Khan, have been targeted in Pakistan through media by putting out articles against us, undocumented completely. And now a major news outlet has taken that story and started talking about us, claiming Atif and I to be CIA operatives, to be Indian agents. Yeah. And also, I guess siphoning off what, a couple of $1 million, I think, in funds from the party. Ridiculous allegations. I hope somebody has the courage to put up their name and a proper publication so that we can go after them in the American way. And I hope they do it so that we can find out and they are able to come and prove those allegations. After this, I do want to, if anybody from the same sources are hearing this, who am I and who is Atif Khan? First of all, we are being targeting as somebody who's against the military in Pakistan, against Pakistan, traitors of Pakistan. I very proudly stand here today as the son of an army officer of Pakistan who served in this army. I grew up in a cantonment myself. We are the same people who stood up and organized the Pakistani community against Modi when Modi came to Houston about Kashmir. Even President Trump was there. We organized a rally with about 20,000 people there. We stood up for Pakistan. We are the same people who stood up for Pakistan in front of the United Nations, time and over again. So that's our history. Yes, we live here in the US, but we serve the interests of Pakistan and the people of Pakistan. I also want to touch on why this is so emotional and dear to me. My association with PTI goes beyond 25 years. My leader, Imran Khan, has been targeted. I'm not going to stand here and blame who. He has been imprisoned. He has been charged and convicted in a case that relates directly to the Undersecretary of State, Donald Lu. He's been convicted in a case on the cipher. So I have a direct interest in what is going on tomorrow in that hearing. And talking about the hearing, I want to congratulate the Pakistani community, the Pakistani Americans living here who worked very hard. It was not just the not PTI, I promise you. It's the Pakistani American community that has forced this hearing in Congress tomorrow. And I want to congratulate them for doing it. And I promise you, the Pakistani community stands strong and together on this issue. And inshallah, we will. This is just the beginning, the congressional. There'll be a Senate hearing, and there'll be more. There'll be congressional delegations going to Pakistan. We'll be doing many things, and all of this for my mother country, Pakistan. One more thing before I leave. My interest, I stand here today as a Pakistani American. Why am I so concerned about what's going on between these two countries? Because my loyalties are to both these countries, where I was born and raised, and where I've made a living and lived for almost 50 years now. My children, my grandchildren live in this country. I have a huge interest in seeing beautiful relations between Pakistan and America. Pakistan has always been an ally of the United States, and we want that relationship to grow. And now, what do we see? And I'm going to point it out. I think it's out in the public now. Like Akbar Saab also mentioned, I've seen a list going around
of Pakistanis living here in Washington who are being targeted by the ISI with their photographs. A list was published, and they were told, the embassy was told that their national ID cards should be cancelled. This kind of repression cannot be tolerated, not here in the United States. We will fight against it. We will go to the FBI. We will go to our lawmakers. We will, go against anybody who targets us, Pakistanis living here in the US. So that's kind of where, I don't want to go into, you've all heard about rigging and the stolen mandate. We all know about it. But Pakistani Americans, inshallah, will stand tall for Pakistan, for the people of Pakistan, and for a democratic state of Pakistan. Thank you.
Sajjad Barki sir, thank you so much. Sajjad Barki was the only one who represented Pakistan Tehreek Insaf PTI over here. We have almost concluded I will quickly request Dr. Saab, but before that, Dr. Saab, just give me 1 minute to basically say something. Imran Khan is a politician, and like every politician in the world, he has done many mistakes, scores of mistakes. Sometimes I keep on mentioning them, and great detriment of the PTI followers. Like every politician does mistakes, Imran Khan has done lots of mistakes. But to Imran Khan's credit, the struggle he launched after he was clandestinely removed from the public office was within the constitutional framework of Pakistan and within the framework of any democratic society. So he's a politician. All his rhetoric was within the bounds of the constitutional framework. The ways the Pakistani system has responded is the real problem. It is not about Imran Khan. It is now about Pakistan Tehreek Insaf. The crisis which Pakistan faces is that how in the last 2 years, the Pakistani administrative and political system, the Pakistani civil military bureaucracy has regressed and has taken Pakistan back to the days of 1980s when we had the last brutal martial. And I think what is not being understood in this country by the US media, the New York Times and Washington Post have done an amazing contribution in the last, after the February elections. And I'm really impressed with the integrity the New York Times, Washington Post, the Financial Times, the BBC, the Chevening have reported on Pakistan. It's amazing. But still, it's not being understood that what's happening in Pakistan in a shrunken global world in which we all are interdependent. Pakistan is the 5th largest country. Pakistan is United States' problem not because of Imran Khan, because of the regression of the democracy and the human society that is taking place in Pakistan. That is why Pakistan should be very important for the US Congress and for the Biden administration as to what is really happening in Pakistan. So I will ask the final concluding comments from Dr. Asif, who is the host of this event, and then maybe if some people would like to ask the questions. Thank you.
I think a lot has been said. There's nothing for me to add. Again, thank you so much for being a participant here, and hope we added some information, and we'll be in touch with you. With this thing, if there is any question, we are really going to focus on questions from media people. Other people can meet us, all that kind of stuff to make on the record. So if there's any more question which we can answer, we have to take any more questions.
Doctor, what do you really want from the US government? What should they do? Like, what do you really want from the US government to do?
You ask for a wish list?
No, I'm asking you, whatever you are doing, obviously you want something from US government to do, right? So what really is that?
I am getting everything I need, to be very honest. I don't need to be in any position. I'm very blessed. I'm able to speak for people in different continents. 99.9% of the people I fight for and speak for, I don't know them. I don't do business with them. I will never meet them. Every single person I did a hearing for, I made statements for, I tweeted them. I never knew their families. I never knew them as a business. I never had any interaction with them, and I have never talked to them after that. Maybe one conversation. This is one thing which bothers Pakistan, which is one thing that bothers Pakistani Americans here, and so many other people. What the hell this guy want? I honestly, solemnly tell you, I don't have any vested interest. I am not there to make more money. I have no other business except.
I think you misheard my question. I'm asking what you really want from Biden
I think it's a very
administration.
structured question. I appreciate it.
That
I'm getting more from
Yeah.
more than US comment here.
Well, yeah, it's a policy question, right? What policy change is being looked for? Is that correct? Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. From our perspective, non-Pakistani, just American advocacy group, I think the first and foremost is to ensure that, if the military is involved in human rights violations, has a role in undemocratic behavior, it's our duty as Americans to not support that military, not train that military, not cooperate with that military. That's also under law, what current law is supposed to apply. So that's number one. But then I think more broadly, there'd be a concern that, and a focus on, a review of whether U.S. action, did in any way contribute to a perception that there was support for this or encourage it, and to review why, if there is an inconsistency in terms of how the U.S. is promoting democracy, and then be transparent about that, I'd say, with the Pakistani people and with the world. I think, more broadly about, how can the U.S. be consistent so that the world has a sense of when the U.S. speaks, is there any kind of geopolitical motivation, or are they giving a fair and balanced assessment regardless of how it lands?
So this is very interesting. That
with all my apologies, that will become the PTI response. So that will be.
So this is very interesting what he said.
It is not very difficult. Okay, I think I took your question wrong.
Yes.
I get called every day. I get messages every day.
This question is very structured.
Yeah, every day. But that is true. Honestly, what we want is a progressive Pakistan, Pakistan with inclusive values, Pakistan respecting democracy, and Pakistan in the world mainstream. That's what we want. We don't really want to hurt Pakistan. We don't want to make any damages. We really every day with doing all this stuff. There are so many things I every day do which help Pakistan.
But you are seeking Biden administration help. You are seeking Biden administration help.
I have taken everybody's help who can help us in Pakistan.
But this is very interesting that at the same time you are accusing Donald Lu, who's a part of Biden administration, that he supported Pakistani government. At the same time, you're asking them to help you. I mean, this is like.
I don't think they're going to use name Donald Lu, except that he's an official witness.
Imran Khan talk about him in his. Then he does.
I am not Imran Khan. For that thing, I want to ask Pakistan, come on. No, Imran Khan is here. Come on, please. Come on.
Yeah, Pakistan is a good man.
Yes.
Sorry, who?
Your name is Sajjad.
Jahanzeb, Air Vice.
We see him in the White House hearings all the time. No, all I was going to say, I think it was an excellent question, and that's why we are all here today. What do we want? Very simply, for the American government to recognize the will of the people of Pakistan.
Yes.
That's all. We don't want anything else. If there has been an election and one party has won a clear majority, please support that party. That's all.
And immediate stop.
And well, those come everywhere. But right now, this hearing, we would like our representatives, the American representatives, to address the issue of whether they want to be friends with a certain elite group in Pakistan or the people of Pakistan. Because for long-term results, they will have to be friendly with the people of Pakistan. And I hope that's what will happen.
Thank you. I think Jahanzeb had a very good question, very structured question. And it is also a fair question to ask that while the PTI and Imran Khan have been blaming Donald Lu, which is the representative, of course, it's not the person, the human being, the Donald Lu, it's the representative of the Biden administration for playing a role in the regime change operation in Pakistan. I would respond to it by saying, first of all, they don't have to support Imran Khan or the PTI. They have to support the people of Pakistan. I mean, after all, New York Times is not controlled by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or the Financial Times, the most prestigious publication across Europe, the Economist of London. They're not being controlled by PTI or by Imran Khan. They have clearly commented on the dynamics of the election. And the US administration has to stand by the democratic process and the people of Pakistan because these are essentially the values that define the United States. And in the post-world order, which is the political order after the Second World War, which is essentially the creation of the United States. And United States has lost and sacrificed 400,000 American lives, not to count the millions that have actually lost limb and were injured in the Second World War. And the United States again lost hundreds of thousands of people, whether fatalities or injured in the Korean War and also in the Vietnam War. And the United States has upheld the values of liberal democracy. This is what the United States says in case of a country of Belarus, which is only 9 million. This is what they talk of. They're fighting a war with hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine, which is a country of about 30 million people. And this is what they're talking in terms of Venezuela, which is a country of 28 million. So Pakistan is a nation state of 240 to 250 million that has stood with the United States throughout the Cold War, against the wars in Afghanistan. People of Pakistan are supplicant they are standing in front of the American public. The people of Pakistan are asking help from the American system. This is a great moment in history. The United States system of Congress, the government and the media can help bring. And this is not against the Pakistani military. This is another confusion. When you criticize a general, they hide. I mean, you criticize me for my journalism. I mean, anybody can, blast my journalism, but that doesn't mean media is wrong, right? So when you criticize a particular general or an officers, they do not mean that you're criticizing the Pakistani military. I'm always, hurt when Pakistani military people start, demonizing the Pakistani military as an institution. Pakistani military is a responsible institution, just like a medical profession is it's a responsible institution, or the Pakistani police is an institution. It is just right. But I as a public figure think that what we are witnessing in Pakistan is elite capture of the politics. You can condemn. We are not saying that there should not be democracy, but people confuse Asif Ali Zardari and Nawaz Sharif or maybe Imran Khan's failures for democracy. I mean, these are individuals. Democracy is an essential good for which United States stands, and I think we want United States to stand by the process of democracy in Pakistan.
But the one thing is very clear that Biden administration, the cipher made it clear that Biden administration do not like him. I'm just saying that's why it's good that we're going to the college.
You can have a discussion. I'm saying this for the first time, but I think I'm under pressure to basically bind it up. So I mean,
question? We can go on.
Is there any question? Otherwise, we want to hear. Very quick. Yeah.
From the media.
From the media. Yeah. Is there
So do you think if that Trump is coming back, or we're saying Trump is coming back? If Trump is there,
which is another very problematic thing. But Asif, I don't think that coming of the Trump will necessarily change this equation. Many Pakistani Americans think so, but I think the problem is more than Biden, and it's an institutional issue right now, which we need to address. So with your permission, sir, I wind up this discussion. I'm grateful to all those people who stood up, who kept on waiting for more than 100 minutes. And I'm also grateful for thousands who have watched it across the world. I think more than 20,000 people have watched it in Pakistan on my YouTube alone. So thank you once again to all of you. Thank you so much. And this is a process that must continue. Thank you.